7.
That's why I kind of want, I think there's a couple of people here I know that have stuff. So I want to respect time. So yeah. Okay. So Miriam, why don't you introduce a little bit about Gabby, since you know her the best, and kind of her cultural background and where she went on a mission and all that.
Okay. Her father is my son, my third child, and is, as such, is a descendant of Brigham Young.
Mm-hmm.
So that's part of her history. The other part, her mother is from Brazil, from Pernambuco, which is Recife is probably the closest state. She's done her DNA testing, and she's got everything. She's mostly European, interestingly, but to look at her, and you'll see this in a minute, she does not look European. She looks very Brazilian. She's got quite a mix of cultures and races, everything from indigenous to Black. Some of you have met her sister, Isabel, her older sister. The two of them approached me, and it was mostly Isabel, a couple of years ago to announce to me with some trepidation that they're biracial. Which was so interesting that children would perceive or think that I didn't recognize that. And honestly, I never have. I've never thought of them as biracial ever. They're just Gabby and Isabel. But what it did for me is understand them a little bit and what they are feeling. Gabby has had a year of college at Utah State University, and at that time chose a dormitory, an international dormitory, because she did not feel comfortable with white people, especially at Utah State where it's cowboyish. She just was so strange and weird. She loved being with her mixed different cultures, South American, Japanese. It was just comfortable and dear to her. So that kind of gives you kind of a little bit of background about her. She feels very European, interestingly, because her father is in the Navy and has been stationed in Italy for 7 years. So she went to junior high and high school in Italy. So she speaks Italian, Portuguese, Spanish, English, and a little bit of French. Just really cultured. She's traveled, because you can travel so cheaply when you live in Europe. She's been places I've never even heard of before. She's very well traveled and cultured. Most recently, she came home from Brazil, where she served a mission in Fortaleza, which is I think it's North Brazil. It's kind of 2 states away from where her mother grew up, which her mom was so excited that she would pick up her accent, which, interestingly, she tried to describe this to me, that the Portuguese accent that she has now is kind of like what United States South is to us. So it's kind of, she said, I'm kind of a hick accent. And she's proud of that and loves that. So she says she's from the South in Brazil, even though it was the North. I've asked her about her experience with race, and I'll let her explain this to you. But what it boils down to is this whole racial issue, in her eyes, is a United States of America issue. It's not an issue in Brazil. That's not their history. That's not what they focus on. It may be part of the church's history, but it's not an issue. So if we're looking for explanation on that, I think it's really interesting that Rachel, your dad, Mark, had a very different experience in Brazil when he served his mission there, because he couldn't baptize anybody that had a drop of black blood, which is astounding and so different now for her.
Yeah.
So that gives you a little bit of history with Gabby. I'm just texting to see if she'll jump on. I gave her the link.
That's okay. Just since you're on as her grandma, I mean, you mentioned that you didn't perceive her, right, as being biracial, and how that was kind of that was kind of strange for you. I'm just curious now, how do you see your grandkids now, and how does that still play a piece? What difference is there and all that, or is it not at all? Like, what's your experience now with all this, especially since we've been talking a lot about race and differences and appreciating different cultures? So from that perspective, what do you think for you? What's that been like as you have this family, that's really got a beautiful culture behind it?
It's so interesting. I'm so different from what I was 2 years ago that it's hard to answer that question. Who I am now and is so different than 5 years ago. And it's not because of my grandchildren and recognizing that. It's because of everything else that I've discovered about myself, about my learned, what do we call it, Carol? My learned culture that is so wrong that I'm still battling.
Which we're going to talk to you about that when we do a thing with you.
That's true. That's true, because that's my
culture.
I don't know. I need a therapist is what I need. I have got so much going on.
I think we all need therapists.
No, I've got these family conflicts and a husband with dementia who I think is contagious, because I feel like I've got dementia. My whole life is just in turmoil. So it's going to be really hard to answer that question, because to me, they're still just Gabby and Isabel. I see myself in them. Isabel has my eyes. Gabby has my nature. We have so much in common that they're just part of me. I've never seen darker skin. I mean, I see it, but I don't want to say that I don't see color. I do see color. That it's all part of this, the new me kind of emerging from this darkness that I didn't know I was in.
Yeah, you didn't realize the difference.
No, I did.
Yeah.
What was upsetting is that they have felt discriminated against, and I didn't see it. I didn't know it. And I'm so sad about that, because I could have defended them better. I don't know. I don't know. It's confusing. I'm just still messed up trying to find my way. So
like us all. Lasagna, go ahead, Lasagna.
Yeah, I do. It's only because you just kind of said that. Mary, what do you mean, or can you explain a little bit more when you said you feel like you could have defended them more? Like how how was that? What did that look like where you felt like maybe you should have and you didn't?
And as soon as I said that, I have to retract a little bit. I'm not sure I could have defended them, but I could have helped them understand better that that doesn't bother me. I don't see them as different than my other grandchildren, never have. Um, Perhaps I could have helped educate them better, more than defend them, because I didn't see any inequities. Those kinds of things happened out of my purview. That was somewhere else. But I could have loved them a different way. I could have. Well, isn't that what life is like? You don't know what you don't know until you find it. And as soon as you find it, is it really fair to say, I should have done things differently? I didn't know. Did the best I
The
could.
reason I ask you that is because I know you're talking about, as far as, maybe color or whatever, but I feel that on a different level, because I feel that as a mother, some of the things that I did that I know affected my children, like you just said, I didn't realize it, I didn't necessarily see it, or maybe for me, I chose not to see it because I was trying to maintain peace. And until I understood that there is a difference between righteous peace and unrighteous peace, was the point that I had to get to. Whereas you feel like you've lost a voice, because you're trying to maintain that. And so that's why I asked you, because I've gone through that, not because my children were, but because of maybe trying to maintain a relationship or trying to. And so I was just really curious when you said, defend them, how you might have, but what I know you retracted that, but that's just something that sometimes you go understand, is maybe because I didn't understand, or maybe to I was trying to maintain peace. So sometimes as we're trying to maintain a peace, we sometimes will back down. Even if we see it, we may not acknowledge it because we're trying to be the peacemaker, but we also don't know, So yeah.
That is solving and having them talk and express their feelings. We can heal those past things that perhaps I didn't see then, I didn't understand then, but now that I do, can't we do something? And I tell you what, I think, well, I'm talking too much. Stephanie, you've got your hand up.
Oh,
I'm going to try and get Gabby here.
your sound's off, Stephanie.
Oops. I was going to say, yes, I understand there's protecting, and that's true, especially what you went through. But there's another ingredient that, like what some of my friends, I have to remind them, I am different from you. What you're taking as they're just acting stupid is something that happens all the time. And sometimes we see my friends like, oh, you're just Stephanie. I know I'm just Stephanie. You know I'm just Stephanie, but they don't know it. And so sometimes I tell my friends, you need to be aware and step back and look at the whole situation, because what you're just blowing it off and they're really being offensive and you're thinking, oh, they're just an idiot. overlook it. And it's like, no, it's way past idiot, you know. So and that's the thing. And I know like my friends, it's like, oh, I didn't know, I didn't want to hurt you. And I know they didn't, but it's just like sometimes you have to truly see the person and their situation.
Yeah. Jasmine, go ahead.
I think listening to everybody, I agree 100% with Stephanie and Lasagna. But an interesting, my brain is wired differently. So an interesting way that I'm taking this conversation and that I'm going to use it as I write my book actually is hearing Marianne speak about the regret and the remorse. And then you and I haven't got a chance to talk about it too much, Rachel, but I know that there is two sides to the coin, you know, and so just the reconciling of your ancestors, you know, racism and bigotry and things like that. Like, how do you reconcile that? Like, I put myself in those shoes, like, man, that would be tough. You know what I mean? Like, Marianne's like, I need to talk to a therapist. Like, I believe her when she says that because, like, man, like, how I never even really took that into consideration. And I'm glad that I'm getting a chance to talk to you guys as I'm writing my book, because I'm coming up on a chapter where I'm actually trying to see, like, help the reader see things from both sides. And so I'm going to take that into a lot of consideration. And I may be reaching out to a couple of you guys after this just to kind of talk to you, because while, yes, I'm Black and I understand this side of it, it's always, you know, the other side of the coin. So it's really interesting to hear Marianne talk about how difficult it is to kind of reconcile that culture that was taught. Because I do believe that racism and those type of things are actually taught. They're not just something you're born with. You don't just wake up one day and say, I mean, you can look at how kids play together and realize that. But yeah, I think that that's an interesting twist to things to get to see it from this side.
Have you heard from Gabby at all, Marianne? I definitely have some more questions that, I mean, we've got a good conversation going here. So, but.
She said she can join us in about 20 minutes. Is that
Okay.
too late?
I mean, we can keep doing it, but we may just, what I may try and do is weave in what we're talking about here into her experience, and then she can kind of maybe share some of her experiences with identity and her experiences on the mission. I think that would be great, because I feel like what we've kind of run into here is this concept of identity and how we viewed ourselves and others in the past and how we learn and grow into the future. And I think that would fit in perfectly. So I'll take her for whatever time she can give us. That's fine. Go ahead, Carolyn.
Just thinking about Jasmine and what you were saying. Do you think, what are your thoughts on reconciliation? And do you think it's a possibility?
Your sound's off, Jasmine.
I was just taking in the question. That was a really good question. Yeah, I wanted to do a mental count to 5 before I gave an answer.
You can count to you can count as long as you want,
So,
because that's a big question, I know, and it
is.
Yeah.
It is a big question. The first part of my answer is, of course, yes. I think that reconciliation can and will happen because that is God's ultimate will. That's Heavenly Father's will, right? So his vision and his will ultimately is that heaven and New Zion is going to be we can read in Revelation chapter 7, it's going to be every tribe, every tongue, every people represented. So there will be a reconciliation that happens eventually. I feel like, and that's on the spiritual side. On the human side, I think the reason why reconciliation has been so hard, I don't think that it's impossible, but I think that the reason why it's been hard is because everyone shies away from the really, really hard conversation. And also they shy away from trying to see the coin from both sides. I can sit in the room with some of my friends and have that conversation of, right, Lasagna, yeah, self-deception. And so I can sit in the room with some of my friends and say, hey, you know, it must be really hard though to, like I just talked with you guys, like for the white side, like to reconcile with And they'll be like, no, no, don't make excuses for them. And it's like, well, we have to have grace on both sides, right? We have to understand how our side is hard. You guys have to understand how our side is hard, but then we also have to give that grace back and say, well, it's kind of hard. You know what I mean? That's got to be hard to know that a group of people don't like you automatically just because of who your ancestors are. Just like a group of people don't like us just because of our skin, or you know what I mean. So it's just a reconciliation will happen ultimately, and I think we're getting closer than ever. And this type of group is getting us there. You know, that we're part of that pioneering group that will get us there. It'll happen, but we just got to not shy away from the hard conversation.
Thank you.
You know, as you're talking, as I'm listening to people, and I am kind of thinking of this concept of a shift in identity, how we start out with a particular identity initially and how that kind of shifts over time. And the kind of the spiritual correlation to that comes to my mind is that change of heart, right? Like our hearts have to change. And that sounds like such, we hear it all the time, like change of heart. That's what we're supposed to do. That's what this is for. But how hard it is, it on it, like that concept of a hard heart changing to a soft heart, it can make you physically ill. It really is a very physical process to shift from one space to another, and to relook at yourself and who you are, who your ancestry is moving forward into the future, who you thought other people were. It is a hard thing. I do think it's starting to sit in the hard spaces that is going to do that, because unless we do this, that shifting isn't going to happen, because it's so easy to say, never mind, I don't want to deal with it. Never mind, I don't want to deal with it. It's easy to continue to have a heart that's not changed.
I agree 100%. And it's about being honest. Like, I appreciate the honesty, even from you and from Marion. That's why I was just sitting there kind of letting her, what she was saying, resonate. Like, the honesty is important. Like, hey, it's tough for me, like, to shed the culture that I grew up. I mean, but that's real though. Like, if you've grown up with that your whole life, it took you how many years to be like that, and you're rewiring your brain. That's a hard thing to do. And so I appreciate that honesty. And so it's just sitting in those honest, hard spots and saying, hey guys, look, I am trying my best, but this is where I'm at, you know, and let's talk through it, work through it. As we do, we'll do it together, you know? Yeah.
Sonia.
Yeah, I was gonna say too that, like Jasmine says, it definitely has to start with honesty and truth. And the fact is that we have to find that commonality, and that means getting to the root of everything. That means starting literally at the beginning, and whether that means the beginning of the word in the very beginning, because we know it, you know, if you honestly think about it, we know where we all started at the same place with the same parents, and however it started, that we're all connected. But the thing we have to understand is that we also all have free agency. And so we have to be able to look at people as humans first, because I think we've forgotten that whole sense of humanity, and also understanding still the environments and the things that we grew up in, and being able to go back and really look at ourselves. We have to look at ourselves first. We have to work on us first, like the blame, the all these things, because, you know, like I said, when I first got a chance to know you, Rachel and Carolyn and Marion, when I first listened to your story and I heard the things, and listening to what you had, and listening to your own shames and your own guilts and your own, and, you know, and looking at it going, well, dang, that's kind of deep, you know? And I think that when you can start looking at all of the situation, not just a piece of it, not just the symptom, because so much of what we're dealing with are symptoms. We're not dealing with the root of the problem. We're dealing with symptoms as a result of the root. But until we address the root of the problem and then understand that we literally are all connected, there is no separation. I don't care if this person went to this island, this land, whatever. We all started as a whole. And we have to get back to that first and understanding who we are. Our identity, like our essential, is essential. And as President Nelson said, and I truly believe that, we are all first children of God. Then the covenant, and are we disciples? Now, do we get here and decide? So then if you're going, okay, I'm a daughter or son of the covenant, and I'm a disciple of Jesus Christ, because that's the first thing. If you're a disciple of Jesus Christ, you know darn well that Jesus Christ don't separate nobody. He is no respecter of persons. He doesn't care. Like, he has clearly stated that. And if we're disciples of Jesus Christ, there's no way that we can continue to do the things in the way that we do them, of blame and this and that happen, and be disciples of Christ, because that's not how he functions. You know, so it does all boil to our identity, and it all boils back us to looking at our own selves, you know, and what is it that I need to change? Because it was something I was telling my daughter last night that I learned in Doctrine and Covenant 84, where it says, you attract who you are like. So if light, then you are going to have that light, and that light is going to attract one another. You know, so we have to think about it. We attract what it is and how we respond as to what we, as a person, our own selves, where we're at. Because we are all struggling too, and we got to fix ourselves first before we can really work on reconciling to anybody else. We have to build whatever that is in ourselves. And then the rest, as he said, will take care of itself.
I think it's super interesting to think. For me, I came at this very much from like a trauma informed perspective, from a like generational trauma, looking at the impact of trauma on people's bodies. And something that's been interesting to me is, you know, we talk about how Christ is, to me, I call Christ the great unifier, right? Like, Christ is the great unifier. I think one of the big evils of racism, but classes, anytime we kind of splinter off into groups, when we define ourselves, where I'm in this group, you're in that group, and we're trying to like separate ourselves from each other. I think one of the great kind of just evils of that is that it actually really does some damage to us physically, and it does divide us. And I think one of the things, for at least, I think as white people and descendants of Brigham Young, this is in my brain, how I have looked at what damage it's done to us, is that we have easily been able to put other people in other groups and not care about it. Because we've had to, in order to survive. I mean, if you think about it, in order to be, say, a slave owner and to treat people as if they're property, somehow you had to do something to your psyche to like do that to another person, right? You had to change something about your brain and about how you are as a person in order to damage another person like that. And so I guess I look at that and I'm like, we are stuck, in my opinion, with that. We are stuck with the fact that our history has damaged us so that we actually have a hard time doing this. We have, ultimately, as protection for ourselves, because what's been passed down to us, we have created walls, separation, because we don't want to be hurt by what has been done. I remember there was one time I finally realized how good it is to let myself feel the pain, because it allows that pain to go through me. When I was reading about a lynching that was done to a pregnant woman, and I remember thinking, I really don't want to read this story. Who wants to read a story about a lynching to a pregnant woman? But I kind of made myself do it. And not only did I make myself do it, I made myself take down the walls that would stop me from hurting, right? So I don't know if you guys do this, but like if you watch a movie that maybe has violence or something and it is yucky, or even reading in the news, right? You block yourself off in a way to be like, I don't want to feel that pain right now. I let myself feel that. I wanted to feel it. And I just broke down. I was crying, obviously. I was reading this. But as I let it wash through me, it was just this deep sorrow and lament for what happened. And then it was like it just washed through me. And then I could move on. It was like I felt this pain, I experienced the pain, and then I felt like I could move forward, understanding it, being able to face it, and then being able to say, okay, now we've got to move forward. Like, now it's time to move forward with what do we do with this? And I feel like that's for me, I feel like that's part of my job. Part of my job is to actually stop not feeling the pain. Part of my job is to feel the pain of what has happened. So I think Lasagna, you had your hand up. Your mic's off.
I said I wanted to respond to what you just said. Exactly what you said, is the same scenario that happened with Jesus Christ and the, in Jerusalem when when he comes and the Israelites see the prints in his hands and his feet, and and they're like, well, what is that? Because they don't know. And he's like, these are the wounds of whatever in the house of my friends. He didn't go blast them and say, oh yeah, by the way, this, and this. No, he says these are the wounds. And when they realized it, they wept. They lamented, because it's like, oh man, you know what I'm saying? And so what you just said, that just really brought me to that, that sometimes we have to, in some way, it has to be brought to our attention, but then we recognize it. Maybe we didn't recognize it before, but we recognize it now. And yes, you do feel that grief and that lamenting, because it's like, oh my gosh, wow. It's that wow moment. Anyway.
Jasmine.
Oh, sorry, I was still on mute. So a couple of things ran through my head. So first, I think it's important that understanding the other person's side, like I said, reading that and understanding that helps you kind of dig deep and understand, where they're coming from. And something, we always know when we're supposed, like, I think from a young age, we know when we're supposed to be one of the unifiers or one of the ones that stir the pot. And because a story, as you were talking about, you reading about the lynching, I thought about when I went to Richardson Junior High. True story, you guys. So we were asked to write a final paper in my class, and everyone's going around the classroom asking what they're going to write about. And they get to me, and I said, I'm going to write about the KKK. And everyone just stopped and looked at me like, what? And I did. I wrote about the KKK. I actually wrote to the KKK, and I lied to them. And I did not tell them I was Black. I told them I was a white girl named Katie, and I had them send me I told them I wanted to write about them, and I had them send me a packet to the school under my teacher's name. And I wanted to learn everything that I could that they would allow me to learn without being a member. And they said, okay. I learned a lot that made me angry, a lot that made me sad, because I saw some pictures of like some little kids like learning how to tie their first noose at 5 years old, and made me really sad. But I think from that moment forward, I had let go of whatever hate I had toward that group of people. What I realized was this, and I don't let Black people do it, and I don't let anybody that I know that's white do it. We need to stop putting our color before our Christianity, for our duty to God. And I'm not saying we as in this circle, but I think that's to go back to Carolyn's question about will reconciliation happen. Reconciliation will happen when we recognize that we are a spirit being, a celestial being having a human experience, not a human waiting to have a celestial experience. It's all about that dynamic. Even when I decided to become a member of the LDS church, I got so much hate from other Blacks saying, "Oh, you're not, Black enough anymore. You're going to a white. Oh, you're going to be whitewashed, and you're going to." And I cried the whole night before, you guys, knowing that I was going to say I wanted to get baptized. I cried the whole night before because I knew it was going to be such a dynamic change. And I was obeying what my spirit was telling me to do. But I was like, God, what are you doing? Like, I'm going to be the only Black person. I'm so like, oh my God. But what I've learned as I've been here is we have so much more in common than we do differences. We all struggle. We all laugh. I've met some of the most down to earth people that I've ever met in my life. And I think the main thing is just recognizing that that's what happens on both sides, is we forget that we are celestial beings in a human body and not vice versa. And we put this body, this color, before our celestial beauty, and I think that's the thing that it boils down to. But yeah, just going back to what you were saying about just learning about the other side, but without, I think sometimes it's good to kind of take a step back from the emotions, just to kind of understand what was that person thinking, what were they going through. Even the people who did the lynching, what were they thinking, what was going, because not all white people back then were actually okay with slavery. I think most of it, and that's what triggered that thought too. Not all white people were okay with slavery. Like you said, they had to do something with their mind. A lot of them were actually not okay with it, but it was I don't want to be the one that goes against my race, my people. And the same thing with Black people. Not all Black people hate white people, but in this racially charged, dynamic that we're living in right now, you hear a lot of, I got a lot of slack from my family when we talk politics or we talk anything like that, because I won't go with just what anybody tells me to do. You know what I mean? But a lot of people don't have the strength to do that. They feel like, okay, well, I gotta turn that side off of me, because if I go against it, well, then I'm by myself. I don't have this group. You know what I mean? And so as Christians, I think we can help to not force it, but help to push it forward, the reconciliation, if we learn to stick together celestially rather than, make it a black-white thing. We show the world how we unify under a celestial cap as far as whites and Blacks. You know what I mean? And show the rest of the world that it's okay to not go with the status quo of whatever your group is doing.
No, I love that idea. Marion, you had a comment real quick. I'm wondering if we should have Gabby speak to us at a different time.
I'm just texting her to see if she's being pulled so many different.
Yeah, and I'm almost wondering, because I actually feel like this has been a really good discussion, and maybe we could even have her watch it, and then she can think about her own thoughts as it may pertain.
We could do that.
Yeah.
Just back a couple of topics ago, we're kind of going lots of different directions. But something you said, Jasmine, that kind of caught my attention, and kind of in relationship or bumping up against Rachel just a little bit, trying to describe where I have been from, where I'm coming from. As a child and growing up until I'm 70 years old, who I am is normal. Everything else is not normal. That's how I was raised. So I'm such an obedient child that has been hard for me to even challenge what has been my normal in the past, and trying to look at that. And Jasmine, when you're saying trying to understand a different perspective or understand what something else has gone through, I have had difficulty because I've never been Black. I've never had that experience. There's no way in the world I'm going to be able to understand what my grandchildren have struggled with, what you struggled with, what anybody else struggles with, because I'm not there. And I don't think I'll ever have that understanding until the next slide. However, what has become important and makes sense to me is that I may not be able to understand that I can be a witness. I can listen. I can, and it's like I can bear witness to your pain, and I can feel that pain and that sorrow that you've had to bear. But gosh, trying to understand it is crazy. Okay, Gabby, you're on. Are you
Yeah.
there?
Mhm.
Can I say one last thing before Gabby, just to that, Marion?
Yes.
The main thing I think that will help is just to advocate. Advocate. You don't have to necessarily understand, but if you're in a room and you sense that passive aggressive whatever, or someone says something that you know is wrong, or even if you're in your own personal circles, I've had to do that with my friends and family. Like, hey, that's not good, and it's just us. There's nobody watching, but that's how you start that. You don't really have to understand, but just start advocating and saying something when you're in those circles and it's not right.
Thank you. That's a challenge for me, I have to say, because I'm shy and I don't like to be adversarial. So, but I'm working on it. Thank you. That's a great word, advocate.
Yes, about it, Marion, and I think that means more than anything is you, and which is what I've loved about you all along, is you acknowledge your I don't know the right word that I'm trying to say, but you're willing to acknowledge that instead of making excuses or doing anything. You acknowledge your, whether you call it a weakness, that actually is your strength, by being that's your truth. That's your authenticity, right? That's the part that I see. I mean, if I would see anything else, that's what I see. That you are willing to acknowledge that, but you're willing to learn. And that means everything.
Thank you. Willing to learn. That I am.
You are.
Okay.
Stephanie, I want Stephanie to go, but maybe we could bring Gabby up to speed.
Well, I can talk some other time.
Oh, okay.
I want Gabby to have time before people have to leave in
I
10
know.
minutes.
And I know people have places to go in a little bit here. So, Gabby, hi.
Hi, I'm in a car.
So no, it's totally fine. Actually, this is what I was thinking, because we've actually been having, I think, a really wonderful discussion here about identity and race and what it's meant to all, us, and what a lot of things actually. So I am wondering, because what I would really love to hear from you is, I think your Marion's talked a lot about how you're you feel, I don't know, like you feel like you belong with lots of different cultures, like you feel comfortable in that space. And I personally would love to hear about that experience, about how you've experienced it before you went on your mission, what it felt like on your mission. And in that context, how did your faith play into that? Did it help? Does it help you? That concept of belonging within faith, I think, too, really, like, how do we feel a sense of belonging along with our own sense of identities that may be different or the same as other people? And what you saw in Brazil versus here, if that looks different at all. So I think maybe I can just throw that at you, and I have this recorded, and maybe you can watch it and then come back with some thoughts about it, like at a different time. Does that sound good?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
But I can talk a little bit about my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why
Okay.
don't you? Mm-hmm.
So I guess within the context of like, with I don't know, the multiple ethnicities that my mom's Brazilian, my dad's American, and just kind of having to. I also lived in another country now. I lived in Italy for 5 years or more. So I think the main thing that comes up is you kind of just don't have a place exactly where you feel 100% that you belong. Because, you know, you're with the white Americans and you're the Brazilian. Or you're with the Brazilians and then you're the American. It's like, okay, so like, who wants me? So, but you know, it kind of just depends on you personally. Me, I think my sister has a little bit of a harder time. She gets a little bit more upset with it that she doesn't feel she has a place or doesn't get to connect very much with, you know, our culture, especially our Brazilian culture. But I don't know, I think it depends on how you take it. I like to just I think there's a really cool middle culture that exists. Um, Pretty much in the US, there's a lot of people from other countries that come to live here. And so I always had like Hispanic friends that, or like Bolivian friends that just live here because we kind of get to understand each other in between these two cultures. Or within the military culture, I feel really at home as well because there's a lot of people that have lived overseas that are also like Filipino but are in the American military. I don't know. So there's a lot of middle places that you can also find. And within the church, I don't know that I've really ever thought about how my faith plays into it, but I think having faith in God has taught me that we're all children of God and we have so much more in common than we have different. And I think it's really dumb that a lot of the time we just focus on what's different. So I just got back from my mission in Brazil, and there's a lot of people that don't like our church. There's a lot of churches that speak poorly about our church. So that was annoying. I'm like, can you just like stop? Listen, we both believe in Jesus, okay? So just let me talk to you about Jesus. They're like, no, it's different. It's like, no, it's not. It's the same guy. He died for both of us, okay? So just like sit down and listen, please. But
That's interesting you mentioned that because I think I experienced that where I'm at too, which is in Missouri, in rural Missouri.
yeah.
And I very much experienced that too. And so that, you know, talking about this idea of like we hyper focus on differences, but the reality of it is people are the same no matter where you go. And you are going to have those people who, for whatever reason, have this set. I don't know, like that's just interesting because that's not even, that's outside of race. That's just like different religions, right? That somehow want to differentiate and define how you're different and wrong versus how I'm different and wrong, or whatever that looks like. That is kind of an interesting idea.
Yeah, but I think that's what's kind of beautiful about believing in God in a healthy way, you know, is that we can make priorities and understand what's really important about the human experience, and that our differences, I don't know, in my brain it's like flowers. All flowers are pretty, but they're different colors, you know. And we all and we all have mistakes, we all have our issues, and everybody's just a bad person in a different way, and everybody's a good person in a different way. And that's kind of all the thoughts I have about this subject.
No, I love that. And actually, that totally rounds out this discussion, I think. We're all just a bunch of flowers. I love it. Let's just be a bouquet, guys. Come on.
No, and the variety is what makes it interesting. You know, if everybody was just the same thing, like, where's, you know, life would be super boring.
Yes. No, I love that idea. I love it. So, all right. Any last thoughts? I feel like I've loved this discussion. It has kind of been around it, but the concept of identity and who we are as children of God. And ultimately, I just want to I love that. Let's just all be a big bouquet. And Lasonia, remember you talking about the rainbow too. So go ahead, Lasonia.
No, I was going to just say, thank you, Gabby, just for that short time.
That's perfect.
You came in and said exactly what we spoke about the entire time about,
you just wrapped it all up.
And I always say the same thing. I say we're the rainbow. You know, I'm like, if you look at creation and nature, God is so colorful. And you would just look at it and you go, well, why would he be so colorful and beautiful and diverse in the world and not with his own children? So I thank you for your words. That was very inspirational. Thank you very much.
You have to go back and listen to this now, so you literally just kind of, I think you wrapped it up very nicely. That was perfect.
Yeah, for sure. I'll go and watch it after.
You say, oh yeah. All right. Well, I appreciate everybody coming. Any last thoughts?
I feel like,
question.
oh, go ahead, Jasmine.
No, I'm sorry. My question's really, I'm sorry, Carolyn. Where online can we go look at this? On YouTube? Where? Like,
I will put it on YouTube.
Perfect.
Yep,
Well,
I'll send out a
under-
link to everybody
Okay.
here. And I put it on Black Lives Plus usually, and then I'll send it to you guys personally too, because you guys are all here. So yeah. So okay. This is great. Oh, Carolyn, wait.
I'm going to open up a can of worms. So we have
Oh,
to
we
have,
love can of worms.
we have to have our second discussion, because while we're talking about all being children of God, and I totally believe that and love that concept, in order for me to understand what a Black person, and I can't understand, Mary, and I know that, in order for me to witness and believe and advocate, I've got to see the differences.
Mhm.
And so anyway, that's just what I want to talk about next time. How do you look at both? How do you both understand that we're all children of God, and
I
how
can't wait for that one.
witness, believe, and advocate without seeing the differences and the differences in experiences? Can we go there? You are also wise, and I want to hear how I can make that sense in my mind.
That would be a great topic to do.
I can't wait for that topic. Yeah. Yeah.
Stephanie,
I was going to say, that little section will be addressed in the talk that I give.
Oh, yum, yum, yum. Great.
Under acknowledgement.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So just so you guys know, Stephanie and I are working on a series of just, I don't know, discussion. Well, it's mostly just teaching and a little bit discussion, but Stephanie and I mostly Stephanie has been pulling together some ideas on reconciliation, how we do it. And yeah, so that would be a part of it. So, but we can definitely pull that out as a topic. It's a good one. So I'll put it on our docket. Diversity and unity. How do we do those two together? And I think.
Gabby, thank you so much for coming and sharing. Really appreciate it.
Okay.
Thanks for having me. It was fun.
It was great meeting you.
And then Jasmine's going to contact us. I think I let some people know. We just got to figure out when we're meeting officially. So we'll get together and figure that out. But so anyways, thank you guys for coming. That was a beautiful discussion.
Thank you.
See you guys.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.